here with the Newsroom Vault, looking back to this day in 1959 when Frankie Avalon topped the charts with his #1 hit, Venus. The Philadelphia singer had a half dozen top 40 hits that year. And 6 decades later, I think we're told he's about 78 years old, and he is still going strong. Frankie Avalon.
Nice stuff here. Continuing coverage on New Zealand throughout the day here, certainly on the Fox News channel. Not the news you want to go to bed with at night or wake up in the morning. Really tough stuff. I tell you, Sandra, I've had the good fortune of seeing a great part of this great world of ours. And one of the places I talk about often as one of my favorite places in the whole is the South Island of New Zealand. They are great and beautiful people, and it is one of the most fantastic places you'll ever have the great opportunity to see. Geography, topography, all of it is right there on that one island. It is a special part of this planet.
Top of the hour, Mercedes Schlapp telling us the president will be speaking to the Prime Minister of New Zealand today. So for continuing coverage of all that, keep it right here. Outnumbered starts right now.
We begin with a Fox News alert. New details in a shocking massacre at 2 mosques in New Zealand. Authorities in the United States are stepping up security and abundance of caution even here. A gunman opening fire on worshipers in the city of Christchurch, killing 49 people and injuring dozens of others. President Trump tweeted this: "My warmest sympathy and best wishes go out to the people of New Zealand after the horrible massacre in the mosques. 49 innocent people have so senselessly died, with so many more seriously injured. The U.S. stands by New Zealand for anything we can do. God bless all." Here at home, extra police officers have been deployed to mosques around New York City and other United States cities to ensure the safety of worshipers taking part in morning prayers. Our Jonathan Hunt is live now with the latest. Jonathan?
Harris, it's a massacre that has left New Zealand and indeed the world stunned. The Prime Minister of New Zealand describing the events of Friday as one of her country's darkest days. It was an attack aimed deliberately at Muslims, a gunman live streaming every moment via a camera mounted on his head. We are not showing any of that video at this point, but I have watched it for the sake of our reporting, and it's important to describe the detail. The gunman drives calmly toward a mosque, playing music, talking to himself, saying, "Let's get this party started." He then takes weapons from his trunk, walks towards the mosque, which was filling up for Friday prayers, and opens fire, gunning down at least 2 men at the doorway. Then he walks inside and shoots every single person he can see. He reloads several times and at one point goes back into a room where 2 large groups are laying on the floor, many of them already dead, some wounded. He walks calmly around taking kill shots, finishing off his victims with head or body shots. Once he leaves the mosque, he shoots several people on the street, including a woman wearing traditional Muslim dress. She is wounded. She lies on the street, crying out for help. The gunman walks up to her and once again delivers a final headshot. He then gets back in his car, drives over the woman, and continues to shoot other people from his vehicle. The video stops after about 16 gut-wrenching minutes. The man on the video also left what New Zealand authorities describe as a manifesto online. In it, he describes himself as a 28-year-old Australian citizen. He talks about intimidating and repelling what he repeatedly calls Muslim invaders. He says mass immigration is a threat to civilization, and he says he supports President Trump as a symbol of renewed white identity and common purpose. Police now have at least 3 people in custody, one of whom apparently is seen being arrested on this video, none of whom, according to officials, had been on their terrorism radar in either New Zealand or Australia. The Prime Minister said New Zealand is a proud melting pot and immigrants add much to the community.
They have chosen to make New Zealand their home, and it is their home. They are us. The person who has perpetuated this violence against us is not. They have no place in New Zealand. There is no place in New Zealand for such acts of extreme and unprecedented violence.
The gunman who live-streamed his horrific attack and was taken into custody alive also said in his apparent manifesto that he hoped to go to trial where he will plead not guilty because, in his view, he was taking action against an occupying force. Leaders around the world have refuted that idea, saying it was an act of pure hate pure evil. Harris?
Jonathan Hunt on the story. Jonathan, we'll come back as the news warrants. We're going to stay on this all hour as things are developing. Thank you. Another Fox News alert now as we await President Trump's first ever veto after a dozen Senate Republicans joined Democrats to pass a resolution rejecting the president's declaration of national emergency on the southern border. You're watching Outnumbered. I'm Harris Faulkner. Here today, Fox Business Network anchor Dagan McDowell, Town Hall editor and Fox News contributor Katie Pavlich, host of Kennedy on the Fox Business Network Kennedy, and in the center seat, I believe this is a first, former Obama economic advisor, founder and CEO of 32 Advisors, and Fox News contributor Robert Wolf. We'll get straight to the news, but welcome to the program.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
President Trump is preparing to push back after lawmakers have rejected his national emergency declaration for border wall funding. 12 Republican senators voted with Democrats for a resolution blocking the president's declaration. This despite White House efforts to keep Republicans united on the issue of border security. And in response, yesterday, President Trump sent out this one-word tweet: veto. And while some Republicans voted against the president, saying they are concerned about executive overreach, others said the president made the right move. Here is Senator John Barrasso.
I stand with the president. There is a national emergency at the border. I was with the president Wednesday afternoon in the White House. He felt that if the vote was going to go this way, he is prepared to veto. I encourage him to do so, and his veto will be sustained. There are not the votes to override the president.
You know, this has been a week of votes, so the Senate this week has already dealt the president another setback, approving a bill that would end U.S. military assistance for the Saudi-led war in Yemen. Robert, I want to get your thoughts on this. Many of these issues are turning out to be bipartisan, which is an opportunity for Democrats to reach across the aisle and work together, maybe find some common ground within the conversation about the wall on immigration. Well, could we see that happen?
I think that's idealistic, but it would be great. I think that
a girl can hope.
I think hope's good. As you know, I backed a guy where hope and change was good.
I knew you'd say
the idea, perhaps.
So,
maybe not the implementation.
Okay. Ouch. Over 20% of the Republicans did not vote for this. And I don't think, I listened to Chris Wallace earlier. I think he said it right. It was process versus policy. I think a lot of these Republicans are absolutely for supporting the president with respect to his border wall. But this is the Constitution, and we all know the Congress has the power of the purse. And they went to an appropriations process that was done by Senator Shelby and Nita Lowey, both sides bipartisan. They came out and they gave the president X number of dollars, and it wasn't what he wanted, and then he made it a national emergency. He has that right, but not when it's based on dollars and cents, because he does not have the power of the purse.
You know, it's interesting, Katie. So I did some homework on national emergency declarations. That's not what's interesting. What is that when you look at presidents who've done this in the past, Bill Clinton, 17 of them declared, George W. Bush, 13 declared, Obama, 12, and President Trump already with 3 this year. Most fall under the Economic Emergency Powers Act for President Trump. And so he has looked at things like penalizing countries who interfere with our elections. That's the level.
Right.
How is it that Democrats and others see this type of declaration as different?
Well, President Obama also signed an emergency declaration about Mexican drug cartels being transnational criminal organizations, trying to freeze some of their assets, admitting that they were a serious threat on the border and engaged in violent activity that affected Americans. But when it comes to Democrats opposing this national emergency, it's very clear that Democrats are doing this for political reasons. Republicans had a very hard vote yesterday in the Senate. Many of them voted against it, citing the Constitution, saying the president cannot move money around. But other constitutional scholars like Ted Cruz and Ben Sasse voted in favor of the resolution, saying, look, Congress has given the president this authority, and we've introduced a bill to take some of that power back from the executive. Democrats in the House, led by Nancy Pelosi, are not willing to vote for that bill to take back some of that power from the executive, which proves that for them it's political. For Republicans, it was about principle.
Now, and I just want to point a fact here, because I'm looking at the whole list. So those were executive orders that President Obama issued on the national security issue with the border.
So not a national, national emergency.
National emergency was done for 9/11. I mean, those were true national emergencies. They were not done.
Well, it was done for other things, too.
No, but they were not done.
I was just saying point of fact on that one.
We just wanted to distinguish the difference between a
yeah,
national
but I mean,
emergency
South
and
Sudan, a situation, it doesn't even list what it was yet in November 2015 for Burundi. So, I mean, there are some things that even outside of our country. But this one is right on the edge of our country, Kennedy.
You know what I like is that it is a procedural discussion, as Robert points out, and it's nice to see within one party, and instead of just falling in zombie lockstep behind your congressional leader, like the House Speaker, you know, some Republicans really taking time to think about this issue and having a rational discussion, because Mike Lee said, you know what, I agree with the president. There needs to be more border security. We need to be doing more and funding it appropriately and putting money in the right places so bad people don't come in and harm us and try and take our freedom. That's fine. But what he also said is we have to limit these types of declarations and put a 30-day cap on them and then send them to Congress.
Right.
That was the measure that Mike Lee put forward.
You know that's not happening very often.
Well, he also ended up voting with the measure and against Ben Sasse and Lindsey Graham and Ted Cruz, who went to the White House to try and reason with the president and say, you know, listen, there's got to be a way around this. And he admonished them with a very stern talking to and somehow got all three of them to vote against this measure.
Of the 58 or 60 times that you've seen these declarations issued in the past, 31 of them are still in effect. You know, I want to talk about politics with you, though, Dagan, and just this idea of the president could have declared this at any time. He could have done this, but he wanted, and this is what Sarah Sanders told me earlier on Overtime this week, he wanted the process to work to bring Democrats into the fold.
And I think on that point, and you heard this from Senator Kevin Cramer, that, and I will just quote him, for those of us Republicans who want to claim purity as the reason for a yes vote today, I remind them that we were complicit in this because we were so anxious to make sure that the government didn't get shut down again. We agreed to a lower border funding number. The president agreed to sign it. So again, in terms of any division that you see within the Republican Party, certainly that's the narrative that some of the Democrats are trying to push, that you had these 12 Republicans who voted with the measure in the Senate. That's not the division. The division is between a lot of these Republicans and the American people, where we know that this issue on border security is one of the top issues in this country. And you have Republicans, when they had the House and the Senate last year, did not vote using the power of the purse to deprive sanctuary cities of money. They did not fully fund the border wall to the level that President Trump was requesting. So I think if there's any division, it's the fact that they're not listening to the American people.
And I think, to add to Dagan, the process is working. He put through a national emergency. He has the right. They voted. He lost in the vote. He has the right to veto, which he will. And then the process will take a different turn, which will likely go to the Supreme Court.
Well, wait a minute. Doesn't it have to go past Nancy Pelosi again? I mean, I know she doesn't have the votes to override a veto, but let's not skip a step here.
No, but no one's going to.
We'll see if the House decides to try and do a veto.
Yeah, I don't think that they will, because they don't have a
veto.
Because they don't have a vote.
She's not going to push.
Right, there won't be a veto override. That's what I meant.
Right, there won't be a veto override, and then it goes to the Supreme Court. And what happens, do you think, at that level, Katie? Based on the makeup of the court that we know.
And that's what I don't mean to jump in, but there is a step before it gets to SCOTUS that 4 more states joined the federal lawsuit challenging this, bringing the total to 20. They're seeking injunctive relief to block the emergency declaration, to at least stall it.
But there's also a lot of
Republican before it gets to you.
Yeah, but there's also a lot of Republican attorneys general who came out this week in support legally of the president. And this is what the court system is going to have to find out. The president has clearly stated multiple times he thinks the legal system is on his side. A number of Republican and Democrat senators have actually admitted that they also believe, because they've deferred so much power to the executive, that he has the legal authority to do this. So we'll see if that ends up playing out. But one point that I've continued to make and will continue to make until there's a solution to it is that none of this does anything to solve the crisis on the border.
No.
78,000 people came into the country illegally in February. That was just the people who were caught. Border Patrol continues to testify under oath in front of Congress about all of their resources being depleted due to the crisis, and Congress is not seemingly doing anything to stop that from continuing.
All right, hold on one second. Two things. And I've talked with officials about this. The summer season, and that's 3 or 4 summers ago under Obama, where we saw all of those unaccompanied minors. That is the season where we typically even see a pickup. So
that was also because of an executive order. I mean, that's the problem. Is these executive orders
but you do in the warmer months start to see people that kind of motivate out of the hottest areas
come up with a system of laws and a system that people understand, people who are here and people who are trying to come here. And right now it's so chaotic, and chaos breeds floods of people.
Okay, one thing. You talked about the courts. Remaking the courts for this president may actually be a bigger legacy for him than tax cuts or anything else.
No question that the Supreme Court decisions he's made has given incredible excitement to the Republican Party.
Lower down the stream there.
Listen, that's what votes matter. And the president won, and he has the right to put in his people. And
well, it's not just the Supreme Court; it's all the other courts.
Yeah, it's all the other courts. Maybe that's why he's, a veto exclamation point on his Twitter, because he knows if he moves forward, he'll probably get, as Katie has pointed out, based on the makeup.
I thought he was tweeting veto.
That's what I exactly.
You and Colbert thought that.
One key away.
Can I just add to your one point? Will Hurd, who's the congressman from Texas, where 40% of this wall would be, he is against it.
But I'm not even talking about the wall. I'm talking about changing the laws.
The whole debate, though, is about having a wall. Will Hurd, who is the Texas congressman that would be most affected, he's against it.
Fine.
And by the way, and so was Mac Thornberry.
If people can come here and do a better job,
Texas.
if people can come here and falsely claim asylum and get released into the country, a wall doesn't matter because they're turning themselves in.
Just saying,
the wall is one portion
of a bigger problem. You should have the debate with Will, who represents those
We're
people.
going to have more debate, but we're going to move on to this. I'm glad you're here, Robert Wolf.
Thank you.
One of the families at the center of the college admission scandal is now facing backlash as companies distance themselves from Lori Loughlin, her husband, and their 2 daughters. We'll talk about the growing scandal and how it's resonating with millions of Americans who don't have millions of dollars. Plus, a power play on the Green New Deal. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell will force Democrats to show where they stand on that measure, co-sponsored by progressive firebrand Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. We'll talk about it. Politics all the way. Stay close.
I look forward to us having a real vote and not just a procedural vote. Thank you.
Sing it if you know it. New reaction from Democrats as Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell puts a date on the calendar to force lawmakers to state where they stand on the controversial Green New Deal, the Green Dream. The plan has been championed by freshman Democrat Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Leader McConnell plans to hold a procedural vote later this month and then advance it to a full vote. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer calling it a political stunt. How dare you? And looking to put Republicans on the defensive. Chuck?
We are totally unified. Everyone knows that this bill is a sham, and we are going to ask our Republican colleagues to answer 3 simple questions. Thus far, they've refused to answer them. 1, is climate change real? 2, is it caused by human activity? And 3, should Congress do something about it? The fact that they're afraid to answer those 3 simple questions with no prescription as to what to do puts them on defense. And that's where we have them, and that's where we're going to keep them.
Nah, not really. Meantime, the AFL-CIO, the largest group of labor unions in the country, coming out against the Green New Deal. That's problematic, calling it unrealistic, and saying in a letter, quote, "We will not accept proposals that could cause immediate harm to millions of our members and their families." Here's Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez's response to that.
There's so much work to do in transitioning to 100% renewable energy, and we have to do that work with union labor. We have to do that work with by reinvigorating our entire workforce. So I don't think that that it's representative of an actual split.
That's funny because this isn't representative of an actual plan, so that makes perfect sense. But when you've got the largest labor union in the country against your largest socialistic proposal, I think the left might have a few chasms here.
A lot to unravel there. I would say a couple things. One is smart move by McConnell. My guess is all the Democrats are just going to vote present. They're going to make it like
so coward.
They're going to make it like it's a sham because it was just a resolution. It wasn't a legislative policy. Secondly, where I think the Green New Deal made a big mistake is they shouldn't have included health care. They shouldn't have included jobs guaranteed. I think those things made it about we call it a big kitchen sink as opposed to isolating it to climate change. And therefore, I would have said to the Republicans, just like I said in healthcare's a right and there is a climate problem. Let them say, no, there's no climate problem. So I think they're going to have to, I think the Dems are going to have to rearrange this a bit and say they're for climate change and not force everyone to check the box on something as we've seen that says, you know, there's no such thing as a guaranteed job for all.
Well, if you don't want a vote, why put it in writing?
Well, it is interesting. I mean, it's 14 pages. It's technically an outline.
That's all it is.
Yeah, and so you saw Dick Durbin, Senator Dick Durbin, Democrat, big time, say, well, what the heck is this?
Right.
And I'm quoting him.
Right.
I have a 12-year-old who just made the basketball playoffs. Their second game through. So a lot of my metaphors will deal with that. I think that Senator McConnell just made a baller move.
Yeah, no, listen,
he did. I mean,
I said it right away. Great move.
That is bold. And it gets them on the record, and present doesn't count. I agree with Kennedy.
Well,
that's like checking I'm here.
It's an idea that he deserves to give credit to the Wall Street Journal editorial board, who on February 11th said just this.
Yeah, but he had to do it.
No, but vote on the Green New Deal, and then he announced the day, I think, after that he was going to move on it.
His announcement.
So it was an idea from the editorial board.
And he was wearing a green tie.
This wasn't... This isn't even this is an outline that only makes sense in like the world of HR Puffin stuff.
Yeah.
Well, and Jimmy and Witchy Poo can explain what it means. But listen, I want the Democrats, if they're going to get behind something this idiotic, I want them to step up and say, okay, everybody in this country, okay, the working poor, lower income Americans, we're going to drive your electricity prices through the roof, and we're going to basically increase the price of gasoline, maybe $5 a gallon.
That is such a good point. So what are some of the other costs here? What are some of the other consequences?
I seem to recall a former president on the campaign trail saying he didn't mind doubling or tripling people's electricity costs by shutting down coal mines. And that was a problem. And as we saw, fueled the economic votes for Donald Trump in 2016. But the costs are enormous. I mean, this thing costs, what, $91 trillion when it comes down to it. And the fact is that you can say that it's garbage because it is, but this is a test for 2020 candidates that are Democrats. Beto O'Rourke, Bob O'Rourke, he declared yesterday that he was running for president, and he said that we're going to save the human race from extinction. You have Amy Klobuchar on record saying, I may have changed some things in the Green New Deal if we were actually voting on it, but I do support it as an idea. You have a number of Democrats who are running for president in the Senate right now who are going to have to vote on this, and if they vote present, they're not only being cowardly about it, but they already said president.
They're not taking a firm, solid stance on the most critical issue.
Are they denying something that's a non-binding resolution? Does voting on it give it more credence? Does it give it more credibility that, you know, this is a thing now? Because if you look at it, it isn't a thing necessarily.
It isn't,
just a group of ideas.
It isn't a thing.
But does it become more solidified by putting it on?
They're all endorsing it on the campaign trail.
Well, and even Nancy Pelosi, she says, I don't understand
why. She called it a green dream, by the way.
She doesn't understand why people are endorsing it yet, because they don't know what it is. But does it become more real is my question for you.
I don't think it does, because I think you're going to have two narratives. And it depends, because we live in this polarizing society, which narrative you want to listen to. And the Democrats and our voters are going to say climate change is important, and Republicans don't think it is. And the Republicans are going to say...
Don't employ the straw man. There's plenty of Republicans who've come out and said, absolutely, climate change is real. We have to do something. We have to do it without sacrificing our economy.
Okay.
And there's an opening. Someone with an economics background, you understand that better than anyone.
And how many Republicans have come out hard against the president when he decided to be one of the two countries in the world to leave the Paris Accord?
Sometimes you have to say
I have not heard them speak truth to power on that
some
one.
people believe addressing the environmental problem through the private sector, not through big government. That hasn't really done a whole lot when it comes
That's
to
how emissions have declined 30% in power production in this country because of natural gas, because of private industry. And if any Democrat has the guts to call themselves a capitalist, I think Beto O'Rourke even did that, then they might be able to run on that.
I'm a capitalist too, don't worry. You know
I know, but you're just sitting here on the sofa and not running for office, my friend.
And I never will.
And why not employ a little more nuclear power in this country? That's clean.
Yeah, listen, I think I've been very clear. You would not have seen me sign off for the Green New Deal the way it is. Okay.
Heresy!
I know. Well, no, there are a lot of.
Nickname?
By the way, Joe Biden's not going to sign off for this, and Beto did not say, I support the Green New Deal.
Said he's going to save us from extinction, which apparently the Green New Deal does, too.
All right, well, the House Judiciary Committee releasing transcripts from the closed-door testimony of fired FBI agent Peter Strzok. What is revealing about the Obama-era Justice Department's investigation of Hillary Clinton, plus a gunman targets worshippers inside 2 mosques in New Zealand. At least 49 people are dead and dozens are hurt. We're learning now about the terror attacks, and we've got more for you in moments. Stay put.
A Fox News alert and an update now on that deadly violence in New Zealand. President Trump has planned a phone call to that nation's prime minister this afternoon after a gunman killed at least 49 people inside 2 mosques in Christchurch, New Zealand. The suspect, 28 years old, an Australian man. Police have 3 other people in custody, and 1 is now charged with murder. Meanwhile, major cities here at home are stepping up police presence at mosques. As worshipers hold their morning prayers, we'll bring you the news as we get it.
Was there 2 systems of justice in 2016, one for the Democratic candidate and one for the Republican candidate, where the Republican candidate's campaign had a FISA warrant issued against somebody associated with it based on a document that was known to be unreliable? Why don't we appoint a Mueller-like figure to look at how the Clinton email investigation ended up the way it did?
Republican Senator Lindsey Graham yesterday explaining his decision to oppose a House-passed measure to make the Mueller report public, essentially blocking a vote on the Senate floor. Senator Graham stressing that he supports Mueller's probe, but calling out an apparent double standard in the investigations into President Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton. This comes as Republicans released transcripts of testimony from anti-Trump former FBI special agent Peter Strzok. In closed-door hearings last summer, Strzok reportedly said that the Department of Justice negotiated an agreement with Hillary Clinton's legal team during the investigation into her private email server. Strzok saying that the agreement denied the FBI access to emails on her private server related to the Clinton Foundation. Again, we find out something new, Katie, every day about this. Where does this go about related to the Peter Strzok revelations, but also Senator Graham's suggestion that we need a second special counsel?
Well, in terms of accountability, I'm not sure exactly where it goes. Peter Strzok has been fired. Former FBI Deputy Director Andrew McCabe was also fired and is fighting his loss of his pension and those kinds of things. Yesterday, Lindsey Graham said, look, I'll vote for a resolution that would, imply that Robert Mueller's special counsel report should be released in full to the American people if we then, on the other side, decide to finally investigate what happened with the Clinton email investigation with another special counsel. And he made the case, look, I've allowed Robert Mueller to do his job. I've said he should be protected. I've advocated for the probe to be protected. But now that it seems to be wrapping up, there shouldn't be 2 sides of justice, one for Democrats and one for Republicans. And one more thing real quickly, it's amazing to me that we keep finding out that Hillary Clinton's lawyers kept getting this permission to negotiate these things. So the Clinton Foundation wouldn't give the FBI access to the server, and somehow there was a negotiation about that. Any average person would never be able to negotiate whether the FBI was allowed to look at something like that in a criminal investigation. And we saw this with her lawyers. They were given immunity because they were involved in the probe, but also representing her. So the corruption goes deep, and Lindsey Graham wants to
Was that before or after the server was taken out back and
hammered with a and bleach fitted? Yeah.
Robert, I want to yield all my time to you, and because you're the closest person on the couch to anybody named Clinton. And my overarching question is, look, this idea of email investigation sank her battleship. It really did. And you've talked about communications and what could have changed. What could have changed is if she hadn't had a top secret server. She says she didn't have classified information on it. I just wonder, aren't you curious, even as a Democrat, to know what was the real deal with that?
So a couple things. I just need to respond to what Lindsey Graham says, because I was incredibly disappointed, because the day before, the most bipartisan agenda that came to fruition is 420 House members, Republican and Democrat, voted unanimously to make the Mueller report public. So for Lindsey Graham to take what is really the most bipartisan issue and throw it out is ridiculous. I just need to make that statement, because that's an unfair assessment.
We got it. So
now the Clintons.
Right.
Sorry about that.
But it's not, I want to That
Okay.
vote's not legally binding.
I didn't say
and
it
so
was.
Nobody is who has said we're not making the Mueller report public? Who
I was
out of the
just responding to
administration?
Lindsey
Especially
Graham.
not the man whose job it is,
And that
William
vote's
I was
not
Barr.
only
legally
responding
binding.
to Lindsey
So
Graham.
go ahead.
Right,
Okay.
and William Barr is in charge, and he said that he will
Right.
make as much as possible.
I
But let's
was
get back to the
only
question so
responding
that
to
people don't
Lindsey
think that
Graham.
you're trying to dodge the question.
I'm not dodging.
Okay. So
Listen,
don't you want to know what happened? What would be wrong with a far and wide look at what was going on with that top secret server situation with Hillary Clinton?
Listen, I have no issue if the FBI and Department of Justice feels that they have to investigate what happened with the servers while she was Secretary of State, then they should do that. To me, it's very yesterday's news, but I know that people here don't think that.
That's a talking point.
No, I do feel it's yesterday's news. That's
Still a talking point.
It's not a talking point. That's
It
how I
absolutely
think.
is. She didn't win, therefore we
That's
don't need
not-
to investigate. That is not true. She was almost
Kennedy,
president of the United
Kennedy,
States.
that's-
And all of the elements here that have gone awry are unacceptable. I don't care who's in office. I don't care what office they were seeking. When you have the top people at the FBI who were told that they can't look into this server for where the real crimes may have been committed. And we don't know because the people who were in charge of abstracting the emails that were thrown away were also acting as Hillary Clinton's lawyers. They were also witnesses in the case. They were also there at the FBI.
Let's give Robert a chance
I
to
know
respond.
you like yelling and pointing at me, but let me just
This
respond.
gets me
Let's give
so
Robert a
fired up
chance to
because it
respond
is
so we
wrong
can
on
move on.
all levels. McCabe was trying to shield her.
Or maybe
Comey
we
was
won't
trying
give
to
him a
shield
chance to
her.
respond.
You didn't hear what I said.
Because
I
they
said-
thought they were getting jobs in her administration.
Here, I will soothe you.
I'm
we go-
fine.
No, but I will say this. We have Michael Horowitz, the Inspector General, at the Justice Department looking into the FISA warrant, looking into the spying on Carter Page. There is John Huber, who works in the Justice Department, working on this. We will find out.
But
Maybe
I need
we
to
have
just say
wait
what
for
I
it.
said because I think you didn't hear. I said I have no issue if the FBI and Department of Justice takes it on. I said, personally speaking, that's just my opinion. I don't really care about it.
That's
So
unfortunate.
That's all I said.
They don't care.
We should all care, and there's
Yeah,
going to be some
I
kumbaya. There's going to be some kumbaya on the break. Promise. More fallout from the college admissions scandal. Companies ditched the celebrities accused, and the outrage is, bipartisan. Why folks along the entire political spectrum can agree on this one.
We are following what's new in the college admissions scandal story rocking the nation right now. The Hallmark Channel has cut ties with actress Lori Loughlin, and cosmetics giant Sephora and hair care company Tresemme have dumped her daughter Olivia Jade, a social media influencer, they call her, with millions of followers. In this age of political division, the scandal is sparking across-the-board outrage. And as some 2020 Democrats are campaigning on economic inequality, a piece in The Atlantic suggests, quote, Democrats should stress the many ways in which money allows the rich to purchase all kinds of goods and honors that ought to be immune from its influence. For while many conservatives accept inequality, they are just as angry as liberals when elites look down on ordinary folk, when big corporations use political influence to shut out their competitors, or when the country's rich and famous pursue even ever more elaborate schemes to get their children into college, end quote. Ooh, there's a lot there, Robert.
This was criminal activity. I don't think it's a Republican or Democrat thing. This was a criminal activity. Listen, I have given to University of Penn and the Wharton School. Neither of my kids decided to go there. And I'm proud that I give back to the school. And I'd be proud to give.
Is that your alma mater?
That's my alma mater.
Okay.
Okay. But this is a big difference when you are changing the resumes and bios of your school, their athletic ability, and you're literally lying on contracts. I mean, so
photoshopping faces onto athletes like me on LeBron James' body or something.
This is not about, in my opinion, wealthy people giving philanthropically. This is about wealthy people, doing fraudulent activities for their kids, and they got caught. And they're going to get in trouble.
Well, and their kids are paying the price now, too. I mean, this is a furthering down the bloodstream, right, Katie?
Well, the whole thing is just such a disaster. I mean, if the kids didn't know, did they know? Were they engaging in the fraud with their parents? You know, they're teenagers, and their parents are essentially pressuring them into committing this kind of fraud to get into a school, not on their own volition. And then they get into the real world and realize you can't just buy everybody off. There's a lawsuit now from a number of students who are suing these schools saying, we did it the right way. And what this comes down to is just fundamental fairness and working for what you get. And so I'm glad that we can agree on that as a non-political issue. But, you know, the universities have to respond here as well. And the athletic departments have been caught red-handed here because in a lot of these cases, they went through the athletic department because of the lower GPA. And why is it the athletic department has lower academic standards than the rest of the university?
Because they have so many scholarships to give out because of Title IX, and that system is rife with corruption. But it's like if someone steals a diamond bracelet and gives it to you and you have no idea it's stolen, do you get to keep the bracelet? Absolutely not. So why should some of these students get to keep their spots in universities?
Oh, that's an interesting point.
Games?
That's an interesting point.
Well, the two girls of Lori Loughlin and Massimo Giannulli,
women,
are leaving. Yeah.
Yeah, they dropped out of USC.
They're leaving.
It's a dumb school, and they shouldn't have been.
What I read
According
is
to TMZ.
there's 760 families this guy has helped since 2006. I'm not sure, but we only know 50.
Yeah, but not all. But I think Joe Montana and Phil Mickelson came out and both said they had worked with Singer, but that wasn't, you know, it was legitimate.
And there are charges with regard to them.
I want to pinpoint something. The biggest scam is college.
Yes.
The biggest con in this country is college.
Yes.
That you somehow need to pay. Basically, you're not judged on your intelligence and creativity. You have to come up with this resume when you're 16 in order to get into a school that's then going to charge you, your family, borrowed money, $250,000 to train you to do nothing. To absolutely do nothing. I hope more companies in this country, I hope we champion community college and trade schools, and I hope more companies in this country start actually just recruiting people right out of high school because they could figure out a different methodology, a better methodology to judge who will be a success in this
And
nation.
by the way, California has a fantastic community college system. I'm a product of that system. Santa Monica College, go Corsair. And very proud to have gone through that. And the professors are incredible. That's how I got into UCLA.
I went to Wake Forest.
Which is a Regents College like mine.
I went to Wake Forest.
Like Santa Barbara, which is a public Regents College.
That was implicated in this, and the only reason, and I'm not just even more angry than I am about the lack of education I got there, is because it was relatively cheap back then. But I didn't get a job as a journalist because of that education, because they helped me. I got wading in ankle deep in water in the shower wearing duck boots.
We'll have to hear about the rest of that during the commercial. Trust me, I'm saving you on this one. Day one on the campaign trail, and newly minted Democratic candidate Beto O'Rourke is clapping back after the president mocked him for his animated hand gestures. And whether Beto and all the initial attention is a flash in the pan, or can he go toe-to-toe with the more seasoned campaigners? We'll debate it.
Democratic presidential candidate Beto Bob O'Rourke responding to President Trump's criticism of his hand motions yesterday. The president had mocked the former Texas congressman for making a lot of hand gestures at one of his campaign stops. Here is O'Rourke's response.
I have nothing to say to that. I think people want us to rise above the pettiness, the smallness. They want us to be big, bold, ambitious for this country. And that's what I'm focused on. That's what I see here today in Burlington.
Campaigns always seem to come down to hands at some point, but you talked to Mr. O'Rourke Wednesday before his announcement. So give us a little bit of the behind the scenes leading up to it.
So, as we've spoken, I've met with a lot of the candidates. I was excited to speak to Beto.
Where do you find the time? There's so many. Anyway, go on.
So
There'll
that's
be more.
true.
There will be more.
I'm down to, though, only a few.
All right.
It was a great conversation. I've not spoken to him before, and so we've had email exchanges. He was telling me why he wanted to run and why he was
Why
ready.
does he want to run? You know, there was a whole piece on Slate.com yesterday that said, why does he exist?
Yeah, but there was one in Vanity Fair that said the opposite.
Yeah, the photo shoot and let me look into your eyes. But why is he running?
I think he learned a lot over the last 2 years in Texas, what he stands for and what he believes the party should stand for and the country.
What is that?
Well, I think, thank you. This is a layup.
Yeah. No, I'm
it should be, but you're struggling.
Pro-immigration, health care is a right, gun reform, and racial equality. And I think that, listen, there's
Isn't that everybody who's running?
Different from Kamala Harris. It's a very broad way of saying what he specifically stands for. But I want to get to.
Well, everything. We're not into the policy yet. We're not deep dive. We're
I just thought that after 3 terms,
candidates are well into the policy.
That's not true. We're over 600 days away. No one is getting in the weeds in policy.
After 3 terms as a congressman,
we're still waiting for President Trump to get a policy. It's
but we know what he wants. We know what his vision is.
We do. It's building a wall.
3 terms as a congressman and 1 run at Senate, and you met with him on the day before he announced her the day of.
Yeah.
And I just thought you might have a better idea than most.
No, I was going to add to that. And for me, what I liked about is he's been very thoughtful about struggling to run or not, because running for president.
Yeah, because he said he wasn't going to run emphatically, but then he changed his mind.
He did change his mind.
So what else is he going to change his mind on?
Listen, you'd have to ask him when he comes on the show, which he should come on. It would be a great show for him to be on.
See, now you can call him.
I can call him.
You should tell him to sit right where you're sitting. It would be a really great time.
Fantastic.
But what does a Beto O'Rourke Trump runoff look like if he were to get through the primary, which at this point it looks like the field is very large. And
listen, the field's large and no one's really over 15% if you were really asking. And I think that Beto's probably going to be in the top 5.
No, Biden and Sanders have 52% among the two of them.
But right now, because a lot of people don't know Klobuchar, and Beto just came in. That was a poll that was taken over 10 days ago, and a lot of that's placeholder.
Beto, by the way, has come down because before he announced, he actually,
11%.
he actually had more.
All right, I'm going to get Dagan in here because we got to go.
Go ahead.
He can raise money. We know that, a record amount raised, which Biden needs. Is he thinking in the back of his head, Beto O'Rourke, Biden Beto? Is he thinking that?
I think not. I think it's just the opposite. I think he feels that he has to be able to make believe right now he's there to win. And right now, if you're there to win, you can't think about being vice president.
All right. More Outnumbered in just a moment.